In contrast to the estimates, we have the two shown in pink, and we call those the surrogates. These are formulas that have been developed that do not and were never intended to describe out of a freshman class how many graduate. They are describing something very different related to graduation, and they are very different from each other, as you might guess looking at the numbers. Basically, none of these is an accurate picture of the graduation rate for the Washoe County School District for those reasons. The second question that the Ed Collaborative folks said when they became aware of this issue of lots of different rates with lots of different numbers is it possible to go ahead and take a freshman class in Washoe County School District and identify the kids and find out who graduated? Sounds real simple. Jan will tell you that it's not real simple. But that was a question that the Ed Collaborative asked Superintendent Dugan if we could maybe try to find out. Well, the 50 state governors started asking that question as soon as all the formulas showed up for No Child Left Behind. And in 2005, all 50 governors, including our former governor, Kenny Gwynn, signed on to a compact and agreed to do two things. The governors said that as quickly as they could, in each of their states, they would move toward developing a computer system, hardware, software, and people, in order to track individual students and come up with a student-by-student count of a graduation rate. And they further agreed that when they had the ability to do it, they'd all use the same formula. Shown in the middle of this slide in the yellow print is the National Governors Association formula. And it's important to understand that this one is intended to be a student-by-student count. And so it is the number of four-year graduates divided by the freshman cohort 4 years before. In other words, the first-time freshmen 4 years before, plus any students who transferred in who belonged to that cohort, minus any students who transferred out. And of them, how many graduated in 4 years? That's where the governors came up with as a formula, and they said we will use that when we get the capability to gather that data. Now, if we can, I can take you to a sidebar story. Almost exactly a year ago, the Advocacy Committee spent an entire morning in small groups without knowing anything of what we have just talked about for the last few minutes. We just asked them cold, if you were the state board in Nevada, how would you define graduates? And they said, out of a freshman class, how many graduates? And we said, fine, calculate a formula. And number one, they all ended up with the governor's formula with quite a bit more detail, which you need if you're actually going to try to do this. And number two, of all of the details that were part of this formula, there were only 3 where this whole group of, I don't know, 15, 20, 25 people didn't agree right off the bat without any discussion. They spent 2 more meetings going into depth into the formulas we've just been talking about, then went back and revisited their formula, tweaked it a bit, and unanimously came up with the governor's formula with the following details that I'll share with you. Let me walk you through it. We're going to develop the freshman cohort of 2002-2003. So it's going to be the denominator of that fraction. The first term is every student who was a first-time freshman enrolled and present for at least 1 day in the 2002-2003 school year. This is not your count day number of freshmen. Jan was able to separate out the reclassified freshmen from 02-03 from the first-time freshmen. So she has single-handedly solved the problem that 4 of the 5 formulas we just talked about could not solve. First-time freshmen, and then it's any student who was a freshman. If they came in the first day and left a week later to go to a charter school, they're counted in here. They'll be taken out in a minute. If they showed up for their first day of school on the final day of school that freshman year, they're counted in here. Jan threw the net and trapped every person who was a freshman in our district for at least 1 day in 02-03. To that, she added in any student who transferred in over the next 3 years who belongs in this cohort by virtue of when they were a freshman originally, and then subtract the transfers out. So by counting the transfers in minus the transfers out, she has solved the problem that plagued 2 of those 5 formulas who weren't dealing with growth. This is the true growth in this district. Now let's talk a minute about the transfers out, because that's where the mischief has occurred. The governors were aware of it. There was quite a bit of mischief going on when the governors were looking at this, in that if you want your rate to look better, take out as many kids as you can and that transfers out. And there were indeed some districts in another state who were taking out as a transfer out anybody who wasn't showing up on the last day of school, including, of course, all the dropouts and everybody. And the governor said, no, 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 you can't do this. They set some parameters. So let me just define for you, and it's in your it's in the data profile report if it's not in the white one. I think it's in the data profile report. Oh, no, it's on the white one on page 4. Jan subtracted a student out of the denominator only if that student met one of 4 criteria. 1, the student was enrolled in this cohort, but at some point withdrew to go to either a private or parochial or charter school here in Washoe County, or there was reasonable evidence to believe the student had moved out of Washoe County and is going to school somewhere else. Or 2, the student had been enrolled in Washoe County, but chose to leave and finish their schooling either through homeschooling or distance education from a provider other than Washoe County School District. Or the student had been enrolled in Washoe County School District High School, but was incarcerated outside of Washoe County and had not returned by graduation day, because they're educated in the county wherever they're incarcerated. Or 4, the student had been enrolled as a student in one of our high schools, but died before graduation day. Those are the only students taken out in transfers out.
Leslie and then Johnny.
Are we then not counted that charter schools don't count with us? Because I thought they counted AYP with us. No? We just report that?
They weren't included.
They're not included in that.
Correct.
Are they included in AYP and any other statistics that we report as a county?
We don't have.
Okay, I just wanted to
Paul,
make sure that
Lamarca,
was...
Is it a no?
No, they used to be included, but now by statute. they're
Okay, great.
Counted separately.
Johnny.
Okay, so I'm sorry, the question I would have that would affect us in Arizona and a lot of people that have a large transient population is